Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're diving into a fascinating story from Nigeria. Trust me, this isn't your everyday story. It's filled with lessons, intrigue and tradition. If you're new here, please subscribe for more captivating stories like this one. So sit back, stay tuned and listen carefully to this amazing tale. In the beautiful and serene kingdom of Amaife, there was a king known throughout the land for his wisdom and kindness. His name was King Ume, and he was deeply respected and loved by all his people. King Ume ruled the kingdom with both strength and compassion, which earned him admiration not just within Amaife, but also from neighboring kingdoms. In Amaife, the people had a long-standing custom they strictly observed. Each day, they offered sacrifices of their finest crops and livestock at the entrance to a sacred pit hidden deep within the forest of Amaife. This ritual was an essential part of their lives, as it was believed that the gods of Amaife, who watched over the kingdom, dwelled near this mysterious pit. The people of Amaife held this sacred pit in high regard, knowing that anyone who dared to fall into it would never return. For generations, they had heard this belief and passed it down to their children, reinforcing the mystery and sacredness of the pit. This custom of sacrifice wasn't just about giving up their best produce. It was thought to bring them great blessings. When they adhered to this practice, their farms yielded bountiful harvests. They experienced good fortune, and the kingdom as a whole enjoyed prosperity. However, as time passed, some people in the kingdom began to wonder about the real purpose of this custom. A few villagers started questioning why they had to sacrifice their best crops and animals at the pit. Some even began to suspect that this tradition might be rooted in superstition rather than actual divine favor. These villagers believed that the sacrifices could simply be a myth, something that had continued for years without real proof. Because of this growing doubt, a small number of people decided to stop giving their sacrifices, convinced it wouldn't make any difference in their lives. Yet what these villagers did not know was the hidden secret behind these sacrifices and the true significance of the sacred pit. There was a young boy named DK who was known far and wide for his remarkable skills as a hunter. His reputation was such that he was considered one of the best in the entire kingdom. DK's precision and aim were unmatched, and his talent made him a hero among the villagers. He was proud of his abilities, believing that his skill alone was what made him successful, and he often boasted about how nothing could escape his aim. However, DK was also one of those who questioned the traditions of the kingdom. He believed that the practice of offering sacrifices at the sacred pit was foolish and superstitious. In his mind, his talents in hunting were all that mattered, and he mocked those who still followed the old ways of offering sacrifices. To him, it seemed like an unnecessary ritual, something that held no real meaning. But the events that unfolded would prove to DK that there was more to the customs of Amaife than he had ever imagined. One fateful day, while DK was deep in the forest on one of his hunting expeditions, something strange happened. As he ventured through the thick forest, he spotted a massive antelope. Without hesitation, he aimed and took the shot. But to his surprise, the antelope swiftly darted away, evading his arrow. DK, who prided himself on never missing, couldn't believe what had just happened. Furious and determined, he decided to chase the antelope, believing he could catch it no matter where it went. The antelope headed toward a direction that led DK closer to the sacred pit, a place he had always avoided. But in his rush, he didn't think twice. He followed the animal, and before he knew it, he was dangerously close to the edge of the sacred pit. In his haste and carelessness, DK suddenly tripped and fell into the pit. The pit, said to have no end, was dark and filled with shadows. It reeked of an eerie, unnatural darkness and was known to be haunted by mysterious creatures. As DK plummeted into the abyss, he was swallowed by the terrifying shadows, never to be seen or heard from again. Back in the kingdom, news of DK's disappearance spread quickly. The people of Amaife were shocked and confused. The king, King Ume, was deeply troubled by the news. He immediately ordered a search party made up of the kingdom's finest and most skilled warriors to venture into the forest and find DK. The warriors combed the forest tirelessly, day and night, searching for any sign of the young hunter. They looked everywhere, through the thick trees, along the paths, and near the sacred pit. But after 7 long days and nights, they found nothing. DK was gone without a trace. The people of Amaife began to whisper among themselves, and the mood in the village grew somber. Many of the villagers believed that DK's disappearance was the result of his arrogance and disregard for the traditions of the kingdom. They spoke of how his pride and carelessness had led him to disrespect the customs that had kept the kingdom safe for generations. Some even went so far as to say that the gods had taken DK as punishment for his defiance, hiding his body so that he could not be buried. Parents began to warn their children, reminding them of the importance of following the customs and traditions of Amaife. They spoke of DK as a cautionary tale, warning that anyone who disrespected the gods or the kingdom's ancient practices would face dire consequences. The villagers went about their daily lives. One morning, an event that would shake the entire kingdom of Amaife occurred. 2 young ladies were on their way into the forest to fetch firewood when they made a shocking discovery. As they walked along the path leading to the sacred pit, they spotted a figure lying motionless. As they drew closer, they realized with astonishment that it was DK, the very same young man who had gone missing a week earlier. The villagers had all believed that the gods had taken him as punishment for his disregard of the kingdom's customs and traditions. The 2 young ladies were stunned, and without hesitation, they dropped their firewood and rushed back to the village to alert everyone. "Come and see," they cried. "DK has been found. He's the one everyone thought the gods had taken." Word spread like wildfire throughout the village, and soon the entire community was in shock. When King Ume heard the news, he immediately ordered his royal guards to go and bring DK back to the village. The king made sure that DK was carefully treated with healing herbs and attended to while he recovered. As news of DK's return spread, the villagers' opinions began to change. Those who had believed that the gods were harsh and unforgiving began to wonder if the gods were actually kind. Some even suggested that the gods might have given DK a second chance, a sign of their mercy and forgiveness. The next morning, DK regained consciousness, and the villagers gathered in the royal courtyard to hear from him. King Ume, seated on his exalted throne, watched as the young hunter was brought forward to speak. The people of Amaife had been waiting for days to understand what had happened to him, and now, at last, DK was about to share his story. As he stood before the villagers, DK spoke, his voice filled with a sense of gravity. "Everyone should continue giving their sacrifices at the entrance of the sacred pit," he began. At these words, a murmur spread through the crowd. The villagers, who had been questioning the tradition for so long, were taken aback. One of them, a man who had always questioned the customs, called out, "Why are you going back on your words, DK?" Another villager, who had also been skeptical about the sacrifices, asked, "DK, you've always been the one to say the sacrifices are foolish. What changed? Why are you suddenly saying they must continue?" DK took a deep breath, preparing to tell them what he had experienced. "The sacred pit isn't dangerous, as we all thought," he began. "In fact, there's a whole different world in there." The crowd fell silent as DK's words sank in. The murmurs grew louder, with many villagers exchanging shocked looks, unsure of what to believe. DK continued, describing the events that had led to his fall into the sacred pit. "I was out hunting, checking the traps I had set when something strange happened," he began. "I saw a large antelope and I took a shot at it. But the antelope managed to escape and I chased after it. I didn't realize where I was heading, but before I knew it, I had fallen into the pit." The villagers listened intently, shaking their heads, while others were in disbelief. DK went on, explaining what he had found after falling into the pit. At the bottom, there was another world entirely, filled with strange, mysterious beings. These beings were human-like, but only about a foot tall, and they lived in a place I couldn't have imagined. The villagers gasped. They had never heard of such beings before, and the idea that the pit might be a gateway to another world was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. DK continued, his voice now steady as he recounted the days he spent in that strange world. "When I fell into the pit, I lost consciousness for 3 days. When I woke up, I found myself in a place far different from our world. It was a world of shadows, of of mysterious creatures and a realm that existed in ways I never could have imagined. At this revelation, the villagers were stunned into silence. The idea that the sacred pit was not just a place of danger, but also a portal to an entirely different world, was beyond their understanding. They had long believed it was a place where the gods resided, a place of judgment, but DK's story was challenging everything they had known. DK continued to explain the strange events he had encountered in the other world and how he had eventually made his way back. The villagers listened in rapt attention, hanging on every word, unsure of what to make of this new revelation. Some began to murmur that DK's experience was a sign that there was more to the world than they had ever realized. Others, still skeptical, questioned whether it was just a strange dream or delusion. But one thing was certain. DK's journey had opened their eyes to the mysteries hidden in the sacred pit, and the customs of Amaife would never be the same again. And so, the kingdom of Amaife found itself at a crossroads. The villagers, once divided on the importance of the sacrifices, now found themselves questioning the very nature of the pit, the gods and the traditions they had followed for generations. DK continued his story, his voice calm and steady, as he described the strange beings that had taken care of him while he was unconscious. "These little humans," he said, "took care of me and gave me herbs until I recovered. They don't have any means of survival on their own and rely on the sacrifices we offer at the sacred pit. They live off the food we send, and they pray to their god for sustenance as they wait for whatever we drop into the pit." DK paused for a moment as the villagers listened intently. His next words carried a sense of awe. "I was amazed by what I saw and asked them, who came up with this tradition? And they told me that it was the father of King Ume, the previous king of Amaife. They explained that a very long time ago he had an accident and fell into the sacred pit." The villagers leaned in, eager to hear more. They said that when they found him, he was unconscious. Some of them wanted to kill him for food, as there was a great famine in their world at that time. Others disagreed, arguing that he must be a respected man from the world above. So they took him in and treated him until he regained consciousness. When he woke up, he told them that he was the king of Amaife. Before he left, he made a vow that since they had spared his life, he would ensure that food and other supplies would be sent to their world through the sacred pit. The courtyard was silent as DK finished recounting the story. The villagers, who had once questioned the customs, now murmured among themselves in disbelief and confusion. One by one, voices rose in protest. "Why should we listen to a tradition based on the actions of King Ume's father?" one villager asked. "It wasn't our forefathers who made this law, so why should we follow it?" At that moment, an elder stood up. The oldest man in Amaife, known for his wisdom and respect among the villagers, walked slowly to the front. The crowd grew quiet as everyone turned their attention to him. When he spoke, his voice was steady, filled with authority and years of knowledge. He confirmed DK's story, saying, "It is true that King Ume's father had an accident and fell into the sacred pit long ago. That was the moment when the tradition of offering sacrifices began. The people from the other world celebrated when the food and items began to come through the pit, and it became a custom that we have followed ever since." The courtyard fell into a deep silence as the villagers absorbed the weight of the elder's words. The story that DK had shared, along with the elder's confirmation, had opened their eyes to the deeper meaning behind their customs and the connection between their world and the mysterious realm beyond the sacred pit. DK's return and the revelations he brought had sparked a new understanding among the people of Amaife. They now saw the sacrifices not just as an ancient tradition, but as part of a much larger, mysterious cycle that had been set into motion long ago. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this captivating story. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more intriguing and thought-provoking storylines.